So in this video I'm going to be talking about how the common conventions of a documentary are displayed, as this is a documentary itself. It's called The Last Bookstore, and it starts off with a voiceover from the main man who we are following throughout the documentary. So I really like these shots that they're starting with, as it's sort of giving the surroundings, but as we're about to find out, this whole first minute of the short film is actually all one flash forward to when the bookstore is actually complete, and then for the rest of it we're talking about sort of how he built up to it. So this seems to be a common convention of documentaries, especially in short films, as in having quite large flashbacks or flash forwards, in this case a flash forward. So I like these tracking shots, which are all used as kind of surrounding shots to set his environment, and there we are with him, the voice to our voiceover. So there we are with the title, roughly 1 minute in, and this title sort of displays the difference between the flashback and the rest of the film. So again we're seeing some more sort of shots surrounding his life, and so we actually get a better picture of what he's like as a person. And there we see the door frame on the left, so showing that the cameraman wasn't actually right by him. So we're not following him, we're almost like a fly on the wall when watching their lives in a documentary, and this one especially. So here he's talking about things, like we saw in the other documentary. We hear him talking about things, for example being a father, and then we cut to the action with a picture of him as a father and as a whatever he's talking about. Basically we just see it in photo in the video. So for example here he's talking about him being in hospital, and then we cut to a clip of him in a wheelchair. So it's all sort of like whatever the voiceover is talking about, it's quite common for them to show a video of what actually is happening, just so we sort of can link the two, because we need visuals to link with our speech.
How can I still be a man when I'm half paralyzed, and how can I succeed in this world, and how can I have a family if I want that? Just coming to terms with all these
So again, this whole thing is a voiceover, but perhaps it might not just be one voiceover, it can possibly be 3 or 4. So obviously so far we've seen 2 different interviews in 2 different places, but all taking part in the same documentary.
Things that seemed difficult wasn't necessarily harder, it's just different.
So now he's talking about his problems and how he got over his accident, and we're sort of seeing him go almost a day in the life kind of filming, as we're showing him, for example, giving his daughter breakfast, helping his daughter go places, how he gets on with his life in a wheelchair. So again, as we learned from the other documentary, we're sort of learning to follow our characters emotionally, as we're sort of getting at the moment being drawn to our character. So we sort of care for him in this circumstance.
You're making a mess. So I think she's just showing off how much she can eat.
So note how we're not on the standard voiceover anymore, we're actually in interview with him. So note how we've got now a combination of the two. So not only have we got videos of him doing a voiceover and talking as in an actual interview, we've also got videos of him living day-to-day life but also talking to the camera. So this seems to be a common convention of a documentary as well.
I don't really care what other people think, so I'm not going to try to make her a bookworm.
So note how we have a lot of close-ups as well. So in a lot of the documentaries and the interview circumstances, we have close-ups of his face to show the emotion that he's feeling. For example, when he was with his daughter, he was happy. And then here we have a long shot to show obviously what's happening, the car's opening, and to actually, this is more an informational shot as we're actually seeing how it opens and how it helps his life.
At the warehouse, we sort everything that comes in through big.
So the close-up on how he deals with his problems, and then how he's actually getting on fine, but he's always talking about his bookshop. His disability doesn't seem to be too much of a hurdle or a barrier for him to get over.
It seems like people are always selling books and always donating books, so it keeps us pretty busy. LA Earthquake source book. Should be useful one day.
So all the shots are a very, very low depth of field, all the ones that are close up to him, which means that obviously he's very pin sharp and in focus, and then the rest of his background is out of focus, and this seems to be quite common as well of a documentary. And there's a focus pull there, so you've obviously got him always as the main focus of what's happening in the documentary. So this seems to be quite common of documentaries in general. It's just to follow one character and always focus on them. However, we may, as we're about to find out in this documentary, we may actually also talk to like a subsidiary kind of character. For example, his friend who helps him.
I found $500 one time.
Note how also in the documentaries he's also very central, and you've got leading lines in that shot there, which are the lights leading towards him, and then all the books sort of go in a sort of V shape around him. So I think the composition of these shots are quite well thought out, more so than the average viewer may look at.
It's not even on that book, it's on The Miracle of
So again, we've got that very shallow depth of field with him in focus and the close-up of him showing his emotion. So again, we're sort of getting drawn to our character in general, and we're beginning to sort of have happy times and sadder times with him.
You never know what to expect. It's a treasure hunt, not just the books themselves, but what's inside.
So here we are talking to a subsidiary character, as I put it earlier. So obviously our main focus has always been on the main character, but people who are part of his lives we also may speak to as well. And again, there's the close-up on what he was talking about. So the man with the hat was talking about a photograph they found, and then the camera cut to the photograph. So we always need to have visuals linking to the dialogue that's going on in a documentary.
You do the math, there's hundreds of thousands of books in here. No, the stacks never get smaller. It just keeps growing and growing and growing in here. It's unbelievable. Like, to organize this place, it's a lot of work.
So there, we've spoken to the subsidiary character, but obviously we know that the main thing's not about him, as he's not the main person with the most amount of screen time.
I used to work at Book Soup for 4 years before I came here.
So again, in the documentary, it seems as though we have lots of sort of shots that aren't of what's actually going on. Just I wouldn't know how to put it, to be honest. Like maybe external shots or environmental shots, like stuff that's not of the exact character talking, but it's also not what they are talking about. For example, when they showed those boxes just a minute ago, they're sort of just filling shots, but they're also there to show they're there for a purpose, in that they're showing how they have a filing system of post-it notes. And that's also perhaps key to what could supposedly be the narrative in this documentary. Is that it's a great deal of work to actually sort out all the books and to keep them in good order and to know where they are, etc. So there again, we're given that same shot that we've already seen. So perhaps it may be common to reuse shots in this documentary, because they've reused that shot, they've used it twice now, and again we've got a close-up, so a lot of the same stuff's kind of repeated, and then we have a fade to black to sort of compress time, as it were. And now we're talking about when he moved to LA.
I think shortly after my parents divorced and my girlfriend broke up with me. I had torn my bicep.
So here, all these shots that we're seeing of the police and just general life in LA, we've got no speech, we've got no actual sound for them. We've only got the voiceover, so our focus is always on what he's talking about. But then obviously we can just see some quite interesting and thought-provocative shots to see whilst he's talking. So it's never really, it's stopping it being dull, which is very useful for us. And then obviously we have the long shots surrounding, to show the whole surrounding of the last bookstore, and then back to his voiceover, which he seems to be doing commonly.
This tiny little studio apartment. But this one guy that I knew, this friend of mine, he kept hassling me to open up a store for a couple of years, really. Until finally I relented and was like, all right, there's a space open up across the street from where I live.
So obviously now we're doing flashback shots to when the last bookstore was actually being built. So that's also very common, as I said before, flashbacks and flash forwards. Note how this shot goes through the bookshelf, which I think is great. As you know, it's sort of quite an experimental shot, like quite a different shot, which the cameraman is obviously working with in his techniques. And then we've got some more close-ups of what people are doing.
I definitely think the bookstore has changed.
For example, we've got their faces to show emotion, but then we've also got what that man was storing, for example. So we're sort of interested in our characters, with the same main character just doing the continuous voiceover. Sort of the main voiceover, I seem to think it kind of writes the narrative for us, So, whereas that's different in a documentary to, say, a drama, where in the documentary the actual voiceover seems to be leading the narrative, whereas the action and the dialogue leads it in a drama, say.
We've tried to add a real.
And also note the music that's come in recently, which sort of brings our feelings and emotions positively up as an audience, which sort of was like in the other documentary where you have music to complement the voiceover. It brings the whole thing as a whole, I don't know, to a kind of different vibe really. And again, obviously we've got shots like showing the stuff within the shop. So like those old telephones, for example, and just lots of shots that seem as though they're filling, like this one here. They seem as though they're filling up time, but actually they all have a purpose. They're showing what's within the bookstore and what it's like, rather than just showing it as a whole in like one long shot, say.
I've lost things in my life much more.
And note how there we have a close up on what he's doing to show it's like quite hard work. So we're showing him as a worker, as in like moving all the books, and we're seeing more close up of what he's actually doing with his time.
No big deal. So yeah, no fear.
And then again we have the last bookstore almost as an end title there, and then obviously the credits.